Welcome to the Seoul Stache bonus episode.
We start with the Squid Game song. I can't even think of how it goes right now. You don't want me singing it anyway. I'm bad in the norebang. Can you put that in the beginning here? Because that show, that's the thing about Squid Game now, is it's so goddamn ubiquitous. It's everywhere. That song when they're like walking in, that like just
Mhm.
little like beat thing is on it's on TV shows here. It's in advertisements. You
Well,
almost can't go a day without hearing it.
it's now part of the cultural landscape. Like 10 or 15 years from now, they'll be doing a Korean reality TV show, and they'll play that
It'll just
music,
be,
and
yeah.
it'll have a meaning. It'll mean that something like some kind of challenge is coming up or whatever. It's become like it's like John Williams, Star Wars music.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I feel
Yeah.
like this is such a cultural phenomenon that it's as viral as Gangnam Style. You know, it's
Almost, yeah. I
probably
wonder if it's more or less, just equal to, at least. I mean,
yeah, it's equal to, yeah. I think
Gangnam Style. A little bit off topic, but Gangnam Style was really funny. That came out the same year that my brother got married, and we went
did they
back
play it
to
as
the
wedding?
States. They played it at my brother's fucking wedding, and my wife and I, my fiance at the time, Korean fiance at the time, were there. We were back in the States, and they do like the slow dance. My mom and my brother are doing their first dance, and suddenly, like halfway through the dance, they bust into Gangnam Style. My brother does the whole first dance, and it's like, oh my god, like I thought I left Korea for this trip. What the fuck?
I
But
have
yeah, Squid Game is
a
the same.
confession time. I was a wedding DJ in college. So
Oh no,
yeah, I probably, and
you
I
would have been playing
definitely
Gangnam
would have
Style.
played Gangnam Style too. I would have done it. Yeah,
Well,
it's
now you can
shameful.
play Squid Game instead. I can't wait for some remixes of that. That's probably going to be pretty interesting to hear,
Yeah,
actually. But yeah, Squid Game is so big now that it's. I mean, that's why we're talking about it now. You can't
mhm.
not talk about it. It's so big. It's the number one show globally on Netflix. It's. I think
It's
it's
their
their number one show of all
best
time.
performing show ever, right?
Right.
So, well, what do you think this is like? Is this a if Squid Game comes out, I don't know, 2 years ago or 2 years from now, would it have the same impact, or is it just like a time and place thing? Like Gangnam Style, I feel like it wasn't. I don't think that the Netflix people were,
I
had
think
this thing in a
everything
vault.
is.
Like, oh, we gotta, our best.
Oh no.
I don't
I
think
think
they had
everything is a
anticipated
time and
that.
place thing,
Yeah.
to some extent. But I mean, that's what program was it? Like last year, some Tiger King or something like that came out that was like crazy popular in the States on
Oh
Netflix. I
yeah,
haven't seen
yeah.
it.
That documentary. Yeah, that
And that
was.
that was like
Yeah.
crazy big, but that was because suddenly everyone was stuck at home and they were
Hmm.
like, what the fuck am I gonna watch? And this crazy drama comes out, and they're like, okay, and that got hugely popular. And that's where Squid Game is, and I don't want to, I mean, I'm not a professional TV critic by any stretch of the imagination, and I think it was good. It was addictive. My wife and I like just binged through it in a week.
Oh yeah.
Um, uh, I don't think it's the best TV I've ever seen,
Hmm.
um, but it is interesting, and it's I mean, well done. It's shocking. I mean, that's one of the things that's just so shocking. But it also touches on cultural elements, and I think some of the best TV talks about cultural elements. I mean, one of the best TV shows that I think I've ever seen. I'm not going to say the best, but one of the best, and I would say I like this more than Squid Game overall, is Breaking Bad.
Oh
Um,
yeah. That
I
was
think
also
Breaking
a
Bad is
cultural
just,
phenomenon.
and that
Like
was
it was
also very
just the
cultural.
writing, the direction, the acting
Yeah,
was just superb.
but like an interesting thing about Breaking Bad is that Breaking Bad is a show that's very American. It's about a guy who gets cancer, and the only way to get money for his cancer is to sell meth, like a
Right.
gangster.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
wouldn't happen in any country with proper medical care, right? Any first
Right.
world country. That's
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
American.
Yeah.
Squid
But I,
Game.
but
Oh,
there's more. I think Breaking Bad. I think it was more. It was also. I think we come to find out in the end that his ego was also a
oh,
huge part of
of
it.
course.
Like
There's a lot
there's,
more to the show than that, but the
yeah.
basic
But
premise
that's the
just
premise. Like when they
is
set it up.
is American. It would
Yeah.
never happen elsewhere.
Right.
Whereas Squid Game, I think, is a little bit more global. It's a little bit more universal these
Mm-hmm.
days. Like,
Because it's less about the
uh,
character and more about the concept. Like it's like what
right.
I call like one of these like high concept films or TV
Okay.
series where like
Mm,
Groundhog Day.
Mm.
what if somebody lived the same day over and over again? What if a bunch
A little bit
of
off topic again. I
yeah.
love Groundhog Day. I read a post a long time ago. Somebody did the math on Groundhog Day. Apparently, that dude was repeating Groundhog Day for something like 30 years.
I heard it was even more than that, like
Oh,
a
really? Okay, yeah,
hundred years. Like
crazy amount.
I've
No, I
heard
don't.
so many, yeah,
Oh, well,
because I it
okay.
didn't feel
Anyway,
like that, but yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah.
We're really
So
dating ourselves here with that reference too, by the way.
it's an amazing film, though. It really is. Even
It is.
young people
It
should
holds
watch it.
up.
But yeah, Squid Game is you're right. It's very just conceptual. It's just very universal because I mean, yeah, we can look at Korea. The main premise is that these people who go to the game, just their life is shit and they're in crazy amounts of debt. They're in far over their head. But that's not purely Korea,
Hmm.
right? Is the rich poor wage gap and over Corona actually, I mean that rich poor wage gap has just increased globally as well. In the States, it's gotten much more massive. In Korea, it's got much more massive. Now, if we do look at debt, household debt, Korea actually is in the top 10 for household debt by GDP globally. So it is a bit more than it is in the States or elsewhere. But this, and I do think that the one part of the show when they're back in the real world, what was it, episode 2, episode 3,
Right. Yeah.
um that is I think really the only social commentary part. Once they get in back to Squid Game, it's just a fucked up
It's
world
just a
with
survival,
fucked up games. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's cool.
Right.
and
Yeah.
and my wife was just like, these are kids games, like they're perverting, she didn't say it exactly this way, but they're perverting these kids games and they're turning these fun kids games
Yeah.
into these horrible murder games.
Right.
But the one part when they were back in the real world, and I'm shit with names, when the winner of the Squid Game, 456, when he meets the old
Hmm.
dude again.
Oh, spoiler
And
alert, by the way. Yeah.
yeah, put that,
As if
put
you didn't
something right
know
at the
that he's
beginning
gonna
of this
win,
episode saying
Yeah.
lots of spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he's back meeting with old dude, like outside the Pyeongchang, outside the convenience store, and they're basically just like, yeah, I've realized that life out here is more hell than it is in there. Like that's the Hell Joseon thing coming
Yeah.
around.
That's the
There's the social
extent of the
commentary.
message, really, right? Like
That
it's
really
not
is.
really that political. It's
No,
just
other
like
than,
a lot
yeah,
of people
other than
feel
that,
like
you're
they're in
right.
a shit ton of debt, and I don't think it just wasn't that way. I mean, it's like we talk about this almost every week. I'll bring it up because I politicize things too much, but it's like 40 years in America is 40 years of neoliberal politics, and I think that same
Mm,
neoliberal, like very friendly, supply side economics where, trickle down, let's
yeah,
let the billionaires just get more and more, and it'll eventually
that's
that,
proven so effective.
shower will,
Yeah.
it'll rain on you,
Um,
um
I do think, I mean, the one thing to bring this back to a Korea centric focus, something that I think
mhm,
is interesting is that in the past 3 years, I don't remember, was it 2 or 3 years, when Parasite came out, right? Because that was another big cultural Korea export that just hit the world by storm a
yeah.
couple years ago. And that was a very similar type of social message, right? Which
Mhm,
is rich poor gap. And I mean, both of those families in Parasite were both very competent families. The
mhm.
rich family, they had gotten their money. The poor family, those are just some smart people, right? They're
Oh,
smart, they're hardworking, but for
right.
some reason the rich family had the money and the poor people didn't.
Well,
and,
it's a
and
legacy thing, right? I mean, I'm sure if you just
right,
thought it was just like the rich, it's not a meritocracy anymore, which we talked about. Well, I think we talked about this before, but I
kind
think
of.
the idea of meritocracy, I think it's the same in the. I think it's kind of. I think these are global issues, and that's why I think
Exactly.
they're just
And that's why
piercing
I
the
think they both
souls of
hit really
people.
well.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that, and I could very easily be wrong here because I do not watch much other countries' media other than American and Korean media, right? And there could very likely be some very interesting programs coming from other countries.
Hmm.
But it seems that Korea has the dystopian market or the dystopian films down. Like they've hit something here. One
Hmm.
thing that I think is really interesting, my wife pointed out after we watched this, we were discussing it and like, what does this mean and why did it come out and things like that. There were some recent law changes here in Korea a couple years ago in terms of how what types of programs are allowed to be made and things like that.
Mhm.
So back during like the Bak Geun-hye and previous era, like there weren't a lot of protests in Korea about certain like political events, like the some of the massacres here, like the Korean version of the Kent State massacre, right? I can't remember the date. I think May something. Um, and now that Moon took over, basically he opened up a lot of the freedoms for that. And so one thing my wife said, and I think it was an interesting insight, is that basically Korea is, the floodgates are kind of open now. Like a lot of these creatives who maybe for many years had these kind of social commentary ideas that they wanted to discuss, basically weren't able to discuss them because of these kind of blacklists and things that they would get put on in the Korean entertainment industry.
Mhm.
And now those blacklists are basically dropped, and they're able to make these programs, and maybe that's why suddenly they're coming out. We don't know, this is just, you know, a random theory that my wife said, but it makes sense that we're suddenly seeing Parasite hit the world, and it's this similar to this kind of program
Yeah,
as well,
that makes
not
sense to
long
me.
after it.
Well, Bong Joon-ho is the director of Parasite, and he
Mm,
also made a movie called Snowpiercer, which is, I mean,
right,
compared to
actually that's true.
Parasite uh, is a much more nuanced um, look at class and the, you know, the class divide, and I mean, just the cinematography and everything in that movie is amazing. Like where
Yeah,
their
also a great
apartment's
film.
down underneath the ground, they're looking up, and the other family is up, and so when it's raining, they're just like, wow, it's so beautiful. And when it's raining for the other family, it's like all of our stuff is getting flooded. I mean, it's like there's just the way that he juxtaposes two, even their two
Mm,
houses and the two, you know, the two families, is it really just comes down to like luck of where you were born, right? Because born into a
right,
different you know, higher wealthier family, the father and the mother and the sister and the brother would have been, you know, they would have been elites, right? They would have been neoliberal elites
oh, and
making,
Parasite,
you
yeah, yeah,
know, yeah,
right,
in Parasite.
not Snowpiercer, right.
In Snowpiercer, he Bong Joon-ho was, you know, it was a lot clunkier kind of message, because it's like one side of the train is the, you know, the poor side, and they
And
eat, you know, cockroach, you know, a jelly or whatever, and then the other side is just this wealthy, opulent, and they climb, you know, they're climbing up the class ladder as they move through the train. It's kind of kind of a frying pan to the head, but I still like that movie. Like there is, they
yeah,
what
that
for
one
whatever
felt
reason.
more, I mean, it still does have a bit of social commentary. It did feel a little bit more sci-fi dystopia
Exactly.
than,
Yeah.
whereas both Parasite and Squid Game now are very like based in real world dystopia. Like
Hmm.
they're, you know, it's what you can see around you today. It's people who are in debt. It's people who are living in the half basement apartments. It's a bit more grounded sci-fi, or grounded dystopia rather.
Yeah, you're right. That's why I think like he's kind of he transitioned. He did a movie called Okja in the middle of
Oh, I saw it. Yeah,
yeah, that was kind of like kind of an aside, but it wasn't so much the class, it wasn't about so much about class warfare, and more about like meat and ethics
right.
of, you know, eating meat. But he's, like you said, they're, these social issues are, they're tackling them, whereas in America, I think we're just, you know, before the pandemic, you know, what kind of movies are people looking forward to? Fast and the Furious, these just ostentatious, huge budgeted special effects spectacles. You know, the Marvel movies, but
Marvels, of course. Yeah.
there's no, you know, there isn't a lot of, you know, social commentary in there. If you want that, you can go look at there's some very fine Netflix dramas that kind of deal with those issues. But I
Yeah,
think
I think we want to be careful here, because I'm sure that there are a lot of social commentary programs that are still coming out. I mean, I remember when I was in university, you know, like there was all of the Michael Moore documentaries,
oh
like
yeah,
which
yeah.
were famous, and he's made a couple of since then, and they definitely exist. I'm just maybe not in the target audience for them anymore. We
Hmm.
don't watch that much media really, um, and so I still definitely think that they exist, and this is where I don't want to say that other countries aren't doing it, but what's interesting is that the Korean ones are going global.
Yeah,
right?
that's the
Like you
question.
talk
Like,
about the American shows, and yeah,
mhm,
I'm sure that people are making documentaries and social commentary programs, but the big things are Marvel and Fast and the Furious. The
mhm.
big things coming out of Korea are BTS and Squid Game, um,
I know.
which are interesting. And BTS is something actually we could talk about at another point, although I need to get into their music a little bit more. But their original music is actually very social commentary. Actually, that's how they started to get big here in Korea. Their current pop, Dynamite, is not. That's just pop. But their original stuff is really cool. Actually,
Oh,
it's really
interesting.
different. It's really
I'm
different.
not that familiar with them, so yeah, I was like, we should
I'm
do a
not either,
K-pop
but I've
episode,
Googled
but
them.
I don't think I'm equipped for it. I'm too
I'm not
ignorant, you
either.
know.
We need
Yeah,
a guest. We
we
need
need to
someone
bring in a
to
ringer. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
for that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Squid Game is just it's a cool show. I do think people should watch it. I mean, just because it's so big right now, you just kind of it's a lot of the FOMO thing. You just got to get in on what the hell everyone is talking about.
Right.
Um,
I'm just
and
a
it's
sucker
good.
for those kinds of shows anyway, though. I just
Oh, I
love,
mean,
there's
I like
another actually better
yeah.
version of this called Alice in Borderlands out of Japan.
Alice in
And it came out
Borderlands.
about
That's
six
from
months
Japan.
before. Yeah, it's based on a
Well,
some kind
isn't
of
this
like
also very much like?
comic
Isn't it
book.
just Hunger Games?
It's Hunger Games. It's Running Man. Do you remember Running Man, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie? Way back in
No,
the day. He's like a
that one.
prisoner,
No.
and they take in the future they take prisoners and run them through a gauntlet against these like gladiators. And if the gladiator kills usually kills what do you the inmate, like you're in prison,
Mm,
you like, okay, we're gonna let you run this gauntlet. If you beat these gladiators, you can escape. You will let you out of prison. And so of course he starts killing them, and so this is just like the very this concept
and
has been
actually, now
around
that
for a
we
long
talk about it,
time.
yeah, actually, there was a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie way back in the day as well, where basically I think it was Jean-Claude Van Damme, where basically like they took people and they gave them like a shit ton of money and they were like, run, we're gonna hunt you. You know, the rich people are hunting you, and if you escape, you get to keep all the money that's in your belt that we just
Yeah.
gave you. And of course, Jean-Claude Van Damme, you know, he beats the shit out of everybody and he escapes and you know saves the world. And so yeah, the more we think about it, like these types of dystopian shows aren't new by any means. But again, what's interesting is that they're becoming global issues. I think that's really where it's so big right now.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
like, you know, that Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Jean-Claude
It came out in the
movie.
80s when greed is good still, but like
True.
in the 80s, movies like Wall Street became such huge hits because people enjoyed those movies for the wrong reasons. They're like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
admire the Michael Douglas character, I want to be like him. And it was Oliver Stone trying to say, this guy's an asshole, you don't want to be like this guy at all. But it's just people missing the point. Now in 2021, something the same thing, kind of repackaged, like right now it just really hits. Maybe it's the corona, maybe it's COVID,
Maybe it is.
it's
It's just the people are
yeah.
becoming more aware of the issues surrounding the world and surrounding them, and seeing all of that, and that's where it's just spreading. Everyone is resonant. These images are resonating more, and they're well made, of course. I mean, they are
Mhm.
very well made programs, but I don't think there's anything unique about them that other countries couldn't have done. Just to keep us in time here really quick, do you want to just wrap up with that? You want to discuss the subtitle thing really fast for a little bit about in Squid
Oh
Game?
yeah, yeah. Well, I want to ask you, like, how did you watch? Did you listen? You listened in Korean, and did you have like English
I
subtitles?
had I still have English subtitles on,
You used
except for
English
very
subtitles.
easy sitcoms. I always still have English subtitles on. But I get the best of both worlds because I get the English subtitles to help me understand it, but I can catch the jokes in Korean and I can catch the nuance a bit in Korean. But the things that I
Okay.
don't understand because it's just so goddamn fast, the subtitles are there for me.
I did something that, I mean, I mentioned it in a Facebook group, and I got so much crap for it.
Did you watch it
I
dubbed?
Yeah, I listened to it dubbed, right? Because
No,
yeah, I know.
that's just
It's
terrible.
like, do you think, is that like, I mean, is it that like sinful to do? I mean, because I felt like this is like a guilty pleasure. It's like a silly concept. This is
I mean,
early on too, like when I
I
watched it
never. This is not.
before it blew
I
up.
would never watch anything dubbed. I don't even watch anime. I don't watch cartoons dubbed. I prefer the subtitles on those. Although those I can understand. But
Yeah.
live action, I would never watch dubbed. It just takes away
I
from it
watched
for me.
Drunken Master in the theater dubbed, and it was fantastic. Like they're so much
Well,
better at dubbing stuff now. Now I know the lips like don't match up exactly. And I
yeah,
know
but
I'm a
still,
heretic. I'm definitely in the
yeah,
minority here, but I enjoyed it dubbed.
yeah,
And but I also understood
no,
the relationships like when the so in this article, this is we got to give a shout out to the writer David Tizard, writes for Korea Times, and he wrote a piece about the linguistic nuances of Squid Game, where you know a younger person referring to an older person, like the two guys, the
episode two
investor
as
guy
well.
is younger than the main character, but in the dubbed version they just call each other by their names. It's like Gihun, blah blah blah, whatever. That would never happen in Korean, right? The younger person would always have to refer to the older
Well, this
person.
is the gangster part in that one where the gangster dude got out of jail, and he was like going to deal with like he had those Filipino guys, and the guy was just like, yeah, don't worry, we're all good. And he was like, he kept calling him like Hyungnim, like brother, brother, brother. And then what was his name? Haksu, I think, something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that. Yeah.
And then he was just like, Haksu. He was like, what? You just said my name, and right in the subtitles it doesn't come out right, but it does in the nuance, because yeah, like suddenly a younger dude calling older dude by his name like that is a serious sign of disrespect.
Right.
I
And that
think
might
overall the
get,
subtitles were pretty good. Because I mean you just can't translate everything or interpret everything properly in
mhm.
subtitles. Um, I there was that other article that you sent as well where they were talking about how like why did they keep translating oppa as babe, hey babe, hey babe,
Mhm.
because they were saying that oppa translates, like a lot of people know that word, but I would disagree. Like my parents don't know that word. Like Korea isn't. I think people here in Korea overestimate how much Korea K-pop really has an influence globally. Like a lot of people are into K-pop and BTS,
Yeah.
but I don't know how much my mom really watches Korean TV shows and things like that. Like there
Mhm.
are K-pop fans out there, but I don't think it's as global as as Korean people make it.
Mhm.
So I think it was translated well. The one thing is that I don't know what it was like in the dubbing. Who watched the dubbing? I can't get over that.
It's just a, I
Um,
know, it's just like it's yeah, I'm a
yeah,
heretic.
that's terrible.
I know.
But the I don't know what the dubbing was like. Of course, maybe it was just like the similar as the subtitles. But in the Korean, there was a lot of swearing.
I know. It was
A,
just like fuck this and
a,
fuck that. The
it
whole,
it
yeah.
was
I
it
mean,
was bad. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of murder, so I'm not sure if the swearing is worse than the murder. But
Well, that's a good question. Yeah.
but either way, the Korea or the English subtitles, it was a lot more like damn it and things like that. I think they only said fuck like once, twice in the subtitles,
No,
whereas
they
was
said
it a lot
fuck a
more?
lot in the
Okay, it
during
was
the,
definitely
yeah.
less. It was definitely less than the Koreans were saying
Okay.
it. Like the subtitles were definitely tame compared to the original script. Like there was a lot more swearing
Yeah.
in the original in the Korean than there was in that. But um, I think overall it was translated pretty well from what I caught. I didn't see any major glaring things that people wouldn't understand. But I mean, it's the same.
Mhm.
Anything that you watch that's subtitled in another country, like you're never going to get all of the jokes.
No, and I think a lot of people know that Korea has an honorific linguistic system or whatever, the language
Right.
built on honorifics. And so I mean I just I don't know why this thing has resonated so much with people who have never spent time in Korea. Like for me, it was really enjoyable because I understand the culture. And
Right.
so and then all of a sudden that violence
You
kind of
understood the
hits
culture
the,
and you played all those games and
yeah, yeah. What's the first Dakchi? Is that what it's called? The
oh
one
yeah.
where they
Well,
throw
that's actually
the,
yeah. I mean, some of
yeah.
those games are fun. Like actually the Dalgona, the snacks. Like my wife was like, "Oh yeah, I had those snacks when you were a kid, and if you can get the shape out, you get a free one." And that's
Yeah.
again where she was saying that they were like perverting it and taking all of these like pure kids games that were in her mind had these great memories of playing them as a kid, and now suddenly they are people getting killed,
Yeah.
and everything. Again, just to kind of like wrap up, I think that it's a great show, and I think it resonates. Personally, I think the reason it resonates is just because the issues that it's discussing are not new issues, but they're just
Mhm.
more people are aware of them now, and that's
Yeah.
what it's coming
Right.
out. The
Um,
rich gap, the rich poor gap, things like that. People are aware of it. The
mhm.
like I was saying, the debt. in here in Korea now is where Korea has ranked 9 in the most household debt globally, and it's increased a lot. It's a 91% of GDP has household debt,
Mhm.
percent of household debt, and back in 1980 it was 16%, and now it's
Mhm.
up at almost a full amount of the GDP. So like
What's
household
that
debt
called?
here
Like
in Korea,
house poor, basically, where you just have like a huge, your money's all tied up in buying a house, essentially. If you
but I
can
don't think
even,
this
if
is
you're
all
lucky enough
houses.
to
I
even
think this is
afford that, right?
Yeah, I think this is
Mm.
other debt as well. Like people
Okay.
just have a lot of debt for just all kinds of reasons here
See,
in
that's
Korea, but
new in
debt is
Korea.
just
That
big.
that used to be,
Exactly.
5 years to pay off your house. That was the standard. Where in America,
But
I
yeah,
was like, we have a 30-year mortgage. What are you talking about? Pay
right.
five
But
years.
yeah,
That's
debt
crazy.
is just
Yeah.
bigger and bigger and bigger in Korea, and it seems to be growing faster than other countries is
Yeah.
as well. And but again, this is not a unique to Korea thing. Other countries, it's still not the number one country for household debt. Other countries have more.
Hmm.
Switzerland actually is number one according to Wikipedia. Just had no idea.
What's number one?
Um, Switzerland,
Oh,
interestingly.
interesting. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
no idea why.
I thought they.
Though
Yeah.
if you look at the rate that they've grown from the past 20 years compared to Korea, Korea has grown quite a bit faster than
Hmm.
the amount of debt has grown quite a bit faster here. Um, so yeah, I just think that the program resonates with people because the issues are global now. And so even if you don't speak the language,
Hmm.
you can still understand the idea of the show, that there's some fucked up shit going on out there, and that the rich and the poor are so far separated from each other that the rich use the poor as their playthings. And then
Right.
it goes
Yeah.
into the crazy dystopian world of their island, of the Squid Game island, which is a completely separate world, but it's well made, it's well documented, it's
But
well,
it's
or not
not.
documented, it's well acted and everything like that. And then it's a fun story.
It's not
The crazy stuff.
unreasonable. We've got billionaires flitting off into space now and coming back, and for fun, and while people are really struggling, and I think they see that and they go, well, I mean that if if you have $1 billion to casually spend, you could build a murder island, I guess. Like it's not implausible. I don't know how you'd keep it quiet,
Actually,
but
that's an interesting point,
I
because
mean,
when I first was doing the math of how much money like those rich people would have spent to do this, like I mean, just the total money was like 50. Like I'm just gonna do very rough rounding for our American listeners, but it's like the winner got approximately $40 million for winning, which is a significant chunk of change.
sure.
And of course, the rich guys, the VIPs, they're betting like a million here, a million there, and of course, it would cost a ridiculous amount to like set up this island. Like let's say it costs, just round way the hell up and say that it costs $500 million. Well, you're right. People now are dropping billions to go to space and on jets. So
Yeah.
maybe a murder island isn't as
Implausible,
unrealistic
or
or
yeah.
implausible as I
Yeah.
had thought.
There were a few there's a little bit of technology in there, like the glass floor or whatever, that it was probably, we're not quite there yet, but
Oh,
it's
sure, but
not necessarily
there's
impossible.
other ways that they could fuck with people. They don't need
Yeah.
that tech.
uh
So Squid Game, it's crazy. Korea has some amazing stuff. Squid Game, Parasite, great films
yeah.
that everyone should check out. Korea is bringing out a lot of really cool stuff these days, and it's not all negative. There's some fun stuff as well about it, and maybe we'll have another episode sometime about some fun programs
No,
or
yeah,
other
I
things that
I
we might
enjoyed it.
recommend
I
people to
thoroughly
watch.
enjoyed it. So I would say watch it, even just if you even without the political message, or that
Hopefully, you've already watched it actually by listening to us, because otherwise we would have spoiled everything for you.
yeah, that's right. Right. That's right.
Put that
Yeah.
that warning at the beginning of the episode here.
Okay.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. I'll leave it. I'll put it in the title. Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, nice.
Awesome.
And we could obviously talk about it longer, but we gotta keep this short for our stash today.
The stash. Okay. Yep. All right. Thanks, man. You guys know where to
Yeah.
find us. We're
Catch
on
you
all
next
the
time.
big platforms, and we're on YouTube. So, hit us up. Go to our website, soulpatch.com, SEOUL, and you can find everything right there. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
demolish the steel of my frame.